Hello and welcome back to the Ghoul Guide Association, the show and not so secret society where we talk about all things gothic and pop culture. We are as ever your Ghoul Guides. My name is Lauren
And I'm Mary.
and we are back today for a So You Don't Like Horror, which is good because I sound a bit like shit. So it's a good job it's a Mary episode.
Yes, we have been unexpectedly, unscheduledly off for a while, and yeah, as you can hear, Lauren is quite ill. So please join me in sending Lauren all of our best wishes. Because
Yeah.
no one likes to have a cold or an infection or anything like that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I got a cold which turned into sinusitis.
Mm,
Like 2 out of 10 would not recommend.
no.
I already have an inflammatory disorder, so what's really fun is that when you have an inflammatory disorder, and then you get something like sinusitis, if you accidentally trigger your inflammatory disorder, it also triggers your sinusitis when you think it's getting better. So yesterday, I accidentally triggered my inflammatory disorder and then was like, and now my face is also hurting, which was really fun. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend poor reviews for sinusitis, especially because it's the start of hay fever season. So I'm like, am I maybe also, am
Yeah.
I maybe also not doing very well with pollen? Who's to say? When you're a chronically ill girly, it's like a fun Russian roulette of what's causing your symptoms.
Is it any of the things that I already have, something new, or maybe a mixture of things? But yeah, like
Exactly.
doesn't sound fun. So if you are also under the weather or feeling poorly, or just generally like depressed with the state of the world, then sending you all of our best wishes, along with sending Lauren our best wishes, and hopefully this will
Yeah.
be a little bit of a respite, maybe, from just the horribleness of being ill and the
Yeah.
world.
Let's
Yeah,
let's not think about the real horrors for a second by thinking about
yeah,
horror.
yes. So this is the first actual episode of So You Don't Like Horror for 2026. We did our
Yay!
2025 roundup last time, and we also had some bonus episodes looking back at some of the film festivals that I went to last year. But this is the first episode proper of this year. And if you are new to So You Don't Like Horror, it is essentially a horror podcast for one scaredy cat, Lauren, and one horror film
Yay.
fan, myself, where I talk
Yeah.
Lauren through all of the recent horror film releases, tell them what I think about them, if I think she can watch them, what kind of content or trigger warnings there needs to be, and also if she can't watch them, then I will spoil them. So there will be
Yeah.
spoilers up ahead. When I get into major spoilers for films, I will mark them straight away. But yeah, this is all about
Mhm.
horror films for those who love them or maybe wish that they could watch them but don't want to.
Exactly. This is a long-standing tradition in our friendship where I am really interested in horror and we'll see horror movie trailers and think, oh my god, that looks so interesting, but I know I
Yeah.
can't watch it. And what I used to do was read the synopsis on Wikipedia. And then I met Mary and I was like, no longer am I relegated to Wikipedia. Instead, my friend can tell me what happens in this film and I get to feel like I have also experienced it. And
Yeah.
now you do too.
Yeah. So welcome to the coven, to the gang. uh
To
Spoiler
the
gang.
association.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we normally begin these episodes with our audience recommend section. I don't think we have any, which, a little bit sad for me because that's my favorite part of the episode. But this is a
Yeah.
shout out to you guys listening. If you have watched any horror films recently, be they recent or old, that you want to recommend to us, maybe you think it's a horror film that's especially good, that horror fanatic fans like myself would be interested in,
Mm-hmm.
send them in. Or if you think that it's a film perfect, specifically perfect for scaredy cats like Lauren, then also
Yeah.
send them in. You can message us on any of our platforms at the Ghoul Guides, tweet us, or not tweet us. I don't know if we're
Maybe
still
don't
on
tweet
Twitter.
us.
Um,
Skeet us.
comment, skeet us. I don't know. We're on Instagram.
Yeah.
We're on,
Yeah.
you can leave us a YouTube comment or wherever you are, or we have an
Or you
email.
can email us at ghoulguide666, and we do really love it when you email us. And it doesn't only have to be about horror reviews. Our lovely listener, Emanuela, we have seen your email and we are going to talk to each other about Interview with the Vampire and potentially watching it. And I toyed with and then never did a review for the novel The Familiar that you emailed us about, because I
Yeah.
also read it. So we might do something around that as well. But yeah, please do send us your horror movie recommendations, because Mary really likes them, and then I like it when she watches them.
Yeah, I do. But okay, so if you want, as we said, if you want your recommendation to be featured on our next episode, send those recommendations in now. But I think it's time to get into some of the horror films that I've watched this year. You ready, Lauren?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I know January and February was quite quiet for horror, but it
It
feels
was,
like
yeah.
March, April has been
Mm-hmm.
like a sudden explosion of. There's so much horror coming, particularly this month.
Yes, yeah.
Some of it which looks quite exciting, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, and I will spotlight some of those upcoming releases at the end, and maybe in our next episode we'll get to them. But the first one that I want to talk to you about, and I don't know if you saw anything about this, but it's a film called Cold Storage, which
Is this the one with Boyo from Stranger Things in?
it is, yeah, it is.
It was giving me like Zombieland vibes,
Yeah,
but maybe a little bit more like Zombieland I could watch because it was light on the visuals. This one was maybe looking like a bit more of the horror comedy and not
yes,
comedy with some horror.
yes. I think it definitely is maybe on the cusp of if you could watch it or not. Definitely not one that you could watch in the cinema. Possibly one that you could watch in the safety of your own home, where you can look away, pause it, all that kind of thing. But okay, Cold Storage. So this is directed by Johnny Campbell, and the screenplay is by David Coop, which is based on his 2019 novel of the same name. And it is essentially a science fiction horror comedy. It stars, as you mentioned, Joe Keery as Travis or Tea Cake, also Georgina Campbell as Naomi Williams, as well as Liam Neeson as Robert Quinn, who is a kind of army military guy, and Leslie Manville as Trini Romano, also military guy. Gal. That's
Yeah.
the thing is that I think that you would be so excited about this film is it is essentially a fungus horror. It's fungus horror but from space. So,
Yes.
to set the scene, we begin this film with a kind of a prelude. We've got a scene from 1979. We see there is a space station called Skylab that has been decommissioned, and it's coming through atmospheric re-entry. But an oxygen tank from this decommissioned space station survives, and it lands in Western Australia. So think like outback, very sparse, like very small rural community. Then we skip ahead to 2007. So we're still not in the present yet. But 2007, biochemist Dr. Hero Martins accompanies Pentagon bioterror operatives Robert Quinn and Trini Romano to the tank in Australia. And basically, they had this very frantic call from this person who has, in the meantime, so in between 1979 and 2007, they had tried to turn this tank into some kind of tourist attraction. And they had the tank, and then they had like all these news articles, and the idea was that you could come. I mean, very, very small. I don't even think you could
See
call it a
part of
village.
the a
Yeah.
homestead.
But one guy like rang up and was like, "You need to come here. This is bad." When they get there, so these three people get there, and there's no one there, and they're like, "This is bizarre. It's been a few hours. Obviously, maybe like a day or so, but where is everyone?" They look around these houses and they discover that everyone is dead, but in very bizarre circumstances. they've all like gone up to the roof, and they're like, their bodies are quite gruesome. So if kind of gruesome body stuff isn't your thing, then maybe, like I said, you might be able to, in your
So
own
they've
home,
all
look
gone
away.
up to the roof.
They've all gone up to the roofs of their homes and they're all
Like
dead.
cordyceps. That's what
Yeah.
cordyceps do to the ants.
Uh-huh.
They
Yeah.
make them go high.
Exactly. This is why I was watching it and I was like, Lauren, like, with this whole, like, it is fungus horror. That's what this is. It's fungus horror, but it's space
Yeah.
fungus horror, because then Dr. Martin takes a sample of a heavily mutated fungus. So they're all in, like, you know, hazmat suits, protective gear, but this a little bit of this fungus manages to pierce through her protective gear. And then she's essentially infected, and we can see that it starts to take over her body. And in the time that it takes for her to walk from the sample that she's taken, and there is a sample in like one of the protective boxes, very small fungus sample, she walks back to the cars that they've got. She is essentially being taken over, and she manages to, and it's quite violent, but she manages to kill herself in order to stop the spread of the virus,
The spread of
because
the
the virus wants her to then spread it to the other two people. These two people have obviously seen what's happened to the area in Australia, but also to their newfound colleague who has died. So they know that this sample that she took is very, very dangerous, and it acts very quickly. That is essentially the kind of beginning. We see that
setup.
we see that the sample is taken to an underground cold storage vault in the Atchison storage facility in Kansas, which is a military kind of cold underground storage facility, and that's where we leave it. And then we fast forward to the present day. So we're now in 2025, 2026. The storage facility has been decommissioned and it's been turned into a storage unit. So, all of those places where you can go, they've got loads of different levels underground.
Yeah.
There's obviously one bit that has been sealed off, that the storage unit has kind of been built over, and it's just a storage place. And Tea Cake, Joe Keery, is one of the young workers who works there. He's doing an overnight shift. Georgina Campbell, who plays Naomi, she's a new starter. So they're kind of getting to know each other on this shift. And whilst they're there, they hear this strange beeping noise. Just a beep. And imagine if you're at work and you can hear this like beeping sound. What is that? And they try and find out where it is. It's coming from behind a wall. So they do what any like young workers would do. They just break down the wall, and then they discover all of this military stuff that they probably shouldn't have seen. And there's this thing that's like beeping red. And in the meantime, we also see Liam Neeson has gotten a phone call from someone. He's obviously retired by now, but he's gotten this phone call that's like, this thing is beeping, and you're a contact. And he's like, okay, I thought this day would happen. Here's what you need to do. This, and this. But the caller is like, I don't think I can do all this stuff. And then her manager is like, this guy is crazy. Just shut him down. Like, doesn't want to do any of this stuff. Not realizing, obviously, Liam Neeson and Leslie Manville, as their kind of military characters, saw up front like how quickly this fungus sample can work to just take over, and how it needs to be a priority. And worst case scenario, if it gets out and starts mutating, then obviously everything in that area will need to be destroyed. So it is quite a bad situation, that only Liam Neeson and then eventually his colleague Leslie and then someone else in the call center, only they seem to realize how bad the situation is.
Fortunately, Liam Neeson has a set of skills, and that set of skills apparently carries across every film he's been in since.
It does. Yeah, no, it does. And he is quite good in this film, although it's very they play up how he is very much retired, and is trying to do all of this stuff whilst having the body of someone who should not be doing this stuff. Bad back, bad knees, cracking or like, you know, getting stuck. It's quite
Yeah.
funny.
I really
But
love Liam Neeson's ability to like lean into the comedic like
yeah,
side
yeah.
of his acting. He is such a funny guy. I also completely can sympathize with these kids working in this storage facility, because if I was at work and there was an unidentified beeping that wouldn't stop,
Yeah.
I would probably also break a wall down until I could find it and make it stop.
Well, that's not all they do, because they're like, right, we need to find out what's happening here. So they go down further, so it's quite deep. So they go all the way down to the bottom, and then eventually they find this room that's been sealed off, and that's where like this red light is and it's beeping. And they go into this room, and like it's just, you can tell that like this fungus, there's a sealed room inside that room that's obviously like a refrigerator where the sample is, and they can't see, but then we get like a shot of the back of it where it's just all fungus. And in that room you see that it's all started to come
Ew.
out. It started infecting some of the rats, and there's like weird horrible rats, and they get really freaked out.
Oh, quarter
You
rats.
can also see that essentially, because it's so deep underground, and this is partly possibly where like climate change comes in, there's a water like source that is
Mhm.
interacting with the cold storage part of it, that's then making
That
it
makes
not so
sense.
cold. It's interfering with the temperature regulation, which means that it's warm enough to start mutating and spreading.
Mhm.
So it's
'Cause
already
cordyceps
starting to
live
spread.
in, like, rainforests and shit.
Yeah, yeah. So it's all, yes, this is from space, but it's also still that kind of natural ecology type
Mhm.
organism that just wants to grow, and essentially, in neglecting this storage facility, it's created the perfect its perfect kind of
Perfect
habitat. Yeah,
conditions for the
exactly.
space cordyceps.
Other players in this film, there's an old woman who has a storage facility where she's got all of her like deceased husband stuff. She comes in with a gun. The plan is she wants to, I think, kill herself, but she gets into her storage facility and is
Aw.
like, I'm gonna have a nap first. So she's having a nap. The boss
As one does.
the boss of the storage facility has got his hands on some hot goods. It's some probably stolen TVs, and he's done a deal with this other group of people who are coming to the storage facility to then um, pick up the stuff. There's also Naomi's ex, who, so she has a daughter with him, and he is for whatever reason coming her to her new place of work. And he's calling her all of this kind of stuff. So you do have these other people that are here whilst this
Mhm.
virus is starting to mutate. And at one point, you might have seen from the trailer, there is a deer that has become infected. Eventually, the
Yes,
gang
I saw the deer.
the gang, they're kind of like a biker gang, they start to get infected, and you have like, it is very very funny, and I think I'll leave it there. Obviously at some point Liam
Okay.
Neeson gets there, and he wants to start, you know, put a bomb in the underground, because that's the way that you'll destroy it. You
Mhm.
have Tea Cake and Naomi trying to not get shot by their boss, who's like, "What is going on here?" The ex does also get infected. Uh, it's it's just a very funny horror comedy that I think, if you're squeamish, maybe avoid it. It is on the cusp. I think you could
Yeah.
maybe watch it in your own home, where you can pause it if you need to and take breaks. But it is,
Yeah.
yeah, just very,
Good.
very funny.
Well, I'm glad that I can probably watch it, and I'm also glad that it genuinely was funny, because I
Yeah.
thought the trailer was really funny and it looked really
Yeah.
good. It, like I said, gave me Zombieland vibes, but it also kind of gave me I don't know if you've ever seen 2000s sci-fi comedy classic Evolution,
Oh my god.
that
Yeah.
stars I can't remember his name, but the guy that plays Mulder in
Mm.
X-Files.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought that movie was absolutely hilarious. I watched it again and again. They defeat the alien
Mm.
evolutions with Head and Shoulders, but like this kind when I saw the trailer, I was like, it kind of has like elevated horror vibes of that movie. Um,
I also really liked Evolution when I was younger, and I actually rewatched it recently, and I have to say it does not stand up to a rewatch.
I there's a reason I've not
It's
rewatched it.
yeah, it does not. It's yeah, but this film is very, very funny in a very unproblematic way.
Good.
That's all
Nice.
I'll say
I
about.
also
Yeah,
I really like Joe Keery,
yeah,
and I'm glad to see him kind of doing like I mean, technically, I suppose in the same range as Stranger Things, but I do think he's got really good like comedic timing and stuff. So
yeah,
glad to
yeah.
see him getting out there on the big screen.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, so this next one, then I think you also maybe mentioned this one to me, but I think it's one. It's definitely one that you'll find interesting. Um, I don't know if it's one that you can watch again just because of the violence, but maybe actually, it's called Send Help, um, which you mentioned
I
to
did
me.
mention
It's
this to
yeah,
you.
this is the
Hmm.
latest Sam Raimi horror film. So it was directed by Sam Raimi, horror just icon, and it was written by Damien Shannon and Mark Swift.
Also Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very, yeah, very, very kind of like horror-y Spider-Man though. I think he
Mm.
lends out
Hmm.
those horror elements to
He's good
the
with the body
superhero.
horror. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is an American survival horror thriller. So it is very much your kind of like survival thriller with some horror elements kind of in there. It stars Rachel McAdams as Linda Little. She is a strategist from a financial management company's planning and strategy department, and she's also a survival enthusiast. And it also stars Dylan O'Brien as Bradley Preston, who is the newly appointed CEO of the financial management company where Linda works. So there are other characters, but these are your two main players. You've got Linda Little and Bradley Preston, kind of new boss and employee, essentially. And before we get to the survival part of this, what happens is you see Linda at work and she expects to be promoted. The original boss and CEO has recently died. And she had been promised a promotion by the father, um, essentially by by the father of the now bosses,
Yeah.
by him.
By the Nepo
So
baby new CEO.
yeah, so the Nepo baby is now the main boss, and he doesn't really want other people tell him, oh, your father did promise Linda this promotion. He doesn't want that because she's a bit weird, I guess, and they really overplay the kind of
She's frumpy.
gross frumpiness of her, the way that she eats, what she eats, her hairstyle, maybe some of her hygiene. She's weird, but she's very good at her job, to the point that Bradley Preston, she basically does all of his work and he takes all of the stuff that she does and then passes it off as his. So she's doing all this stuff because she thinks, oh, this person is gonna, show that like it's a collaboration or it's my work. I've done all this extra work. She's really good. But the new CEO is like, no, Bradley Preston um, wants Donovan, actually. Donovan passes off. I've gotten these names wrong, but Donovan is the one who passes off Linda's work as his. And he also shares the new CEO's love for golf and women. So basically, in order to be promoted up to the managerial point, the CEO is like, I want people that are on my wavelength. I want to work with some of the guys. I want to be able to take a business trip, get some women,
Bros.
maybe cheat on our girlfriends, and also go for some
Yeah.
golf. And he can't do that with Linda. So he makes a deal with Linda because she's like, no, I was promised this promotion. He's like, okay, we've got this thing coming up. We're going to go on this business trip. You'll come with us and this will be a trial and then we'll see. So they're in this kind of, this, private plane, private jet, whatever. And it's just CEO, Donovan, Linda, and some other manager, other men. on this plane. Linda is sat there
Silence, dudes.
diligently doing loads of work. They're all just messing around. They pull up. I don't know where they've managed to find this, but they pull up a audition tape that Linda did for the show Survivor, and they're watching it and laughing at her while she's on the plane. She realizes what they're doing, and she's just she's heartbroken, and I think she even like deletes a lot of work. But then nature strikes. It's almost like divine intervention, because these assholes are being
Mhm.
so horrible that judgment comes down from above. The plane is
Full karmic retribution.
exactly, the plane crashes. They land in the middle of the ocean, and Linda and Donovan are the only survivors. They manage to get on an island. She sees him on the beach. He's clearly got quite a bad leg injury. So she essentially manages to get him to shade. Then she starts going about her survival stuff. By the time he gets consciousness, she's already got water and some food and some shelter for them both. She's made sure that he's under shade, because obviously it's very hot on an island, and made sure that
Mhm.
he's comfortable. It's built a fire. She managed to do all this stuff. And then as time progresses, she gets more and more in depth in the stuff that she's doing. So they have like a whole little kitchen area. She starts making all of these kinds of utensils and things out of the things that she finds. She goes hunting. So at one point she makes a weapon, and then she
So
goes
she's living
hunting.
her survivalist dream.
She is genuinely just having a whale of a time. Donovan, on the other hand, first of all, he's feeling very emasculated. He doesn't like the
Mhm.
fact that Linda is taking care of him. And as soon as he can walk with crutches, he tries to go and do his own thing. It's like, how hard can this be? I can do this, but it is quite hard. And he cannot, because he is just a terrible person who has no skills. So he ends up coming back to her. And
Mhm.
she shares, at this point, she's got delicious fruits. She's making sushi. She's fishing. She's hunting. She's got everything, that anyone could want. It's almost a paradise, except he's stuck with someone that he doesn't really like and is
Mhm.
feeling emasculated. So at one point, Donovan tries to poison Linda with berries. So he's like, I want to do something really nice for you to say thank you. I've made you dinner. And he's found these poison berries and he's poisoned her with them. And then while she's writhing in pain, he goes and gets a raft that he's made and tries to escape on it. Now, you might be thinking, oh no, so he's just going to leave Linda, but obviously he's not very good at making a raft. So that
Well, also, I
collapses.
love that he's like, I have proven to myself that I'm completely incapable. So what I'm gonna do is poison the woman who has kept me alive because I'm such a
Yeah.
misogynist dickhead, and assume that I can make a raft despite the fact I have zero survival skills.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I wanted to see this movie, because I was like, what is this doing with toxic masculinity?
Oh, it's all about that. It's all about that. Although it is also about Linda as well. Linda is a little bit unhinged, but I think reasonably so. I think
Mhm.
I understand why she makes the decisions that she makes. So he hasn't put enough poison in her, so she's still able to rescue him from his raft wreck, pull him back in, um, and save him. And then she explains to him, you're really bad at making a raft, and also like if you really wanted to poison me and kill me, you got the wrong amount. She then poisons him to get back at him with octopus toxin, because she's like,
Ooh.
I need you to know that I know what in whatever way I can kill you. So she incapacitates him with octopus toxin, and then she's got this knife, and it's not a knife that she's made. It's a knife like she says that she found it on the island, and she gets this knife, and it's quite. I mean, it's quite a horrific scene. This is a spoiler, so if you do want to go into this, then maybe this is your time. But she castrates him.
Oh, I knew that was gonna.
But actually, okay, so she actually only pretends to castrate him. So she doesn't
Because he
actually do
can't
it
feel anything, he doesn't know that
because he
she's
can't. Yeah.
doing it. Yeah.
Well, he eventually, she's like, I'm not going to do this now, but if you do this again, if you try and leave, if you try and escape from me, like, you won't survive without me, but also I will kill you or I will castrate you. This is your kind of like, this is your warning. And then, so he's having a not very great time. He's having a not very great time.
Of
Meanwhile,
his own
she's
making.
of his own making. Yeah. Meanwhile, she is looking luscious. Her skin is glowing. Her hair looks great. She's got like all of this amazing food. She's like enjoying herself. She's finally on top. She's like, we're not at work
Glow
anymore.
up of the century.
Yeah. One day, she's at another part of the island and then she sees a boat, and it is Donovan's fiance with someone who has come on, like a local person from like that area.
Mhm.
She's like, we call all the official searches were called off like months ago, but I never gave up hope. I'm so excited to see Donovan. She takes them back. She's leading them back, and you can see like what's going through her head, because once they get rescued, that's it, and her whole like dream life is gone. So
Power
again,
dynamic is back.
this is a major spoiler. In order to get back to the camp that she's made where Donovan is, they have to go up a mountain and across like a kind of really perilous ridge, and because of decisions that Linda makes, she purposely makes sure that they both fall off of this ridge. um, so they die. So it's kind of like, okay, so Linda does not want to be rescued, and also she's
Mhm.
now got to the point where she is full on murdering people. um, and maybe this isolation isn't so good for Linda. Um, I think at one point Donovan realizes, I need to get away. He runs away and he finds this house. So, oh my gosh, there's a house here. It's clearly someone. It's on like a whole different part of the island. In fact, it's a part of the island where quite early on, Linda had said to him, there's poisonous stuff over there. Don't go over there. So he goes over there and he finds this house. Really fancy, rich house. Clearly, where people who own it maybe only go there like every now and then. It's like a holiday home.
Yeah.
Really fancy, all that kind of stuff. He manages to break in, and he's trying to like, call the police, all this kind of stuff. Enter Linda again, who's like, oh my god, you think you found something new? I've obviously already found this house. I found it ages ago.
Where do you think the fucking knife
Where do you
came
think the
from?
knife came from? And they have a showdown. TLDR, things do not end up very well for Donovan. Um, and then we're like, okay, so that's obviously the end of the film, right? Because now Linda gets to live out her best life on this island, amazing, gets to
Mhm.
just be survivor. No, we skip ahead to 1 year later, where we're seeing like a news piece about Linda, the sole survivor of a plane crash, who has turned celebrity. She's now very, very rich. We see her
Mhm.
playing golf. She's talking about her very lucrative self-help career, and she's being interviewed because of there's an upcoming film adaptation of her best-selling memoir, in which she again claims to be the only survivor of a plane crash. And I think it's just a really, I mean, Linda is 100% unhinged, but also I understand why she did it. And do you know what? You go, girl. You live your best life.
So it's kind of like an allegory for. It's reminding me of the book The Power by Naomi Alderman, which only ever got one series, like one season of its
Mm.
TV adaptation, which I think is a massive shame because it's such a good concept. But like the whole point of that book, which if you were looking for something a little bit sci-fi, like that's basically what The Power is like patriarchy is so horrendous that if we at this point were able to reverse it, women would do horrific things to men
Yeah.
because we're so full of rage at the way that
Yeah.
we've been treated that we would become the monster, because like the monster is this self-perpetuating thing. So it's that kind of thing of like, you've this is a monster, Linda's a monster of your own making, because if you'd not treated her like shit, she
Absolutely.
wouldn't have turned into an island psycho, and now she's
Absolutely.
basically supplanted you.
Yeah. And like all
Love that.
along,
Love that for Linda.
I
You
know,
go,
right?
girl.
All
I
along, she
support
had.
women's rights and women's wrongs.
Me too. Yeah. But like all along, you're like, okay, so Linda had the intelligence, the resources, the skills to not only save her and her really annoying boss, but also to get them
Mhm.
rescued. They could have they only needed to be there for a couple of days
Yeah.
maybe. And it turned into this whole like month-long endeavor. And then at the end of it, she does literally become the monster that she hated.
Mhm.
She's profiting off of this lie that she's telling
Mhm.
about herself and about these people. She's using it for her own
Yeah.
advantage. She's playing golf, which is, like
You know
it's just
you know what this is really reminding me of? Did you ever watch Bear Grylls' The Island
no,
on Channel 4?
no, I
So,
didn't.
it was like a survivalist show where they would be like a group of like 12 people and they'd strand them somewhere, and they would have like very, very limited resources and they had to kind of survive. And they would usually do a men's island and a women's island. And the women's island almost always was way more successful because the women would like band together, and obviously there
Yeah,
was always personality clashes, particularly between like the older and the younger women. Like, not to say that women are without their own issues, we definitely have lots of them, and ageism is one of them. But one year the men and the women, like they had 3 or 4 days and then they were made to join together, and the women were like, oh well, we've got this system and we do all these things, and the men were like, well, we should hunt and we should do this. And the men basically like destroyed everything the women had built, and
yeah,
did not like the fact essentially that the women had done better than them. And like one guy like ate fucking turkey bones and had to be airlifted off the island because one of the women was like, you shouldn't do that, like it's gonna destroy
yeah,
your insides. He fucking does it anyway. Like, it's just like, yes, this is a violent horror movie, but they've done basically reality show experiments that kind of show this is basically what happened.
yeah. No, 100%. And I think it's like if if Linda had gotten her promotion like she was promised, and
None of this
if
would have happened.
there hadn't been this lad culture at
Yeah.
the in the office where they were also essentially it's workplace bullying, and then if there had been a shipwreck, then it probably would have turned out very, very different. But that's not what happened. And it's like, yeah, you have to obviously not every case of workplace bullying and harassment and misogyny and lad culture is going to turn into Linda. But it
But it
is,
might.
but it might, yeah. And I think that's why
And you
I
should be
enjoyed
afraid.
I very much enjoyed this film.
Mhm.
um
Mhm.
and yeah, would recommend it. And I think, yeah, like there are some violent bits, but I think you could probably watch it, because the
Okay, good
violent
to know,
bits, I
because
think
yeah, I
the violent bits
I specifically
are,
asked you for this
yeah,
one.
yes, yeah, no. And I think that the violent bits, it's more of a it ratchets up. And then the bit at the house, there
Yeah.
is a bit where they are chasing each other where maybe you might need to look away for that bit,
Skip.
but they're all very clearly signposted, which I think is
Yes,
quite
that's what we
helpful.
love. We love a clear, and I have to say,
Yeah,
I like Sam Raimi for that.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
very good at signposting what's about to happen without taking out the tension,
yeah, yeah,
which makes it good for me because then I can watch it.
yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so the final new film I'm going to talk about, is The Bride. And I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I did kind of have a chat about this on BBC Radio
Yeah.
Sheffield. But
Yes, you
I
did.
had to
If
I
you
had to
missed it, I
mention,
posted it on our Instagram.
yeah. Which obviously, I mean, we had that discussion before I saw the film, and now that I have seen the film,
Mhm.
I do obviously have thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And my main one being is that, unfortunately, I think this is one that you will have to be very, very careful with, or maybe only watch snippets of, because there are bits where it's quite violent. Um,
Yeah.
but this is, if you have been living under a rock, this is Maggie Gyllenhaal's film. She wrote and directed this film, and it obviously draws inspiration from the 1935 film Bride of Frankenstein. And I think that obviously you can tell, like, The Bride and Bride of Frankenstein, it
Mhm.
is very important. And I love that because it's one of my favorite things about the book and also the film iterations, which is names and identities. And this is very much a film that is drawing on
Well, it's such a
how important they
subtle
are.
yeah, it's such a subtle reshifting to go from it being like The Bride of Frankenstein, it to it being The
Mm,
Bride, like, taking out that of Frankenstein shifts the agency and it shifts the focus in such a
yeah,
subtle but important way.
yeah. I think it's doing that very, very consciously, and I very much enjoyed that part of it. I will say I think this is quite a polarizing film, and I understand
Yes,
people
I've got that impression.
I understand people that didn't like it, and I think that that is fair. It is quite stylized, and I think also some of the narrative choices are quite um, polarizing. I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
I went with my partner who absolutely hated it, so I understand it. Um, but I think that it is interesting, especially as a Frankenstein text that is looking at creation, but specifically through female identity and what it means to be,
Yeah.
a woman that is always um, assumed to be attached to a male creation. Um, so the original 1935 film starred Boris Karloff as Frankenstein's creature and Elsa Lanchester as both Mary Shelley and the bride. And what I think is really interesting about that film is in the open, because they have the credits at the beginning, the opening credits, Elsa Lanchester is credited as Mary Shelley, and then you have the bride, and there's just a question mark. And then this is a film that very famously starts with that opening scene at the Villa Diodati, where you have Mary
Mhm.
Shelley, Percy Shelley, and Byron having a chat together, and talking about the ghost story competition. And Mary Shelley's like, "What about the sequel?" And that's what the film is supposedly meant to be. And then at the end of the film, you get the creation of the bride, who is also played by Elsa Lanchester. And I think that doubling is really interesting in that
Mhm.
film. And here, Maggie Gyllenhaal also does something really interesting with that. So the people that star in this film, we've got Jessie Buckley, who we'll come back to in a minute. We also have Christian Bale, who plays Frank, the creature. Annette Bening as Dr. Cornelia Euphronius. And I like that it is a woman scientist. And she is a scientist who assists Frank in creating the bride.
Mhm.
Um, Jake Gyllenhaal, who stars as Ronnie Reed, who's a popular Hollywood actor, and Frank idolizes Ronnie Reed. He watches all his films, knows all of his dances, choreography, loves him. And we have two police officers, Peter Skarsgård as Jake Wiles, who is police detective, and then Penelope Cruz as Myrna Malloy, who is Jake's assistant, but it becomes very clear that she does all the work. Which again, I think is very conscious about that. So if we go back to Jessie Buckley, she plays a woman called Ida, um, who also then so Ida is essentially a woman who dies, and then it's her body that is taken by Cornelia Euphronius and Frank and reanimated, and then they say that she is called Penelope Rogers. So then, for a large part of the film, you have this reanimated woman who is going by the identity of Penelope Rogers. And then later, when things are revealed to her, she says, "How about I was intended, how about just the bride?" I quite like that, the bride, not the bride of, and Frank Christian Bale goes, "The bride of Frankenstein." She's like, "No, just the bride," which I think is I like that. It's her kind of the
Mhm.
reanimated woman deciding who she wants to be. So you have these kind of like, this is all essentially one one person who has died, then been reanimated, and then so all of these identities are all Jessie Buckley. But you also have, and I think this is the bit that most people do not like, uh, Jessie Buckley also plays the ghost of Mary Shelley, and she is essentially
Ah, okay.
in these kind of dark scenes where she's talking about wanting a sequel to her novel, and it's quite white feminist, I guess, in that way. And there is this whole idea where at some point before Ida dies, the ghost of Mary Shelley possesses her, and it's very bizarre. And you have this American woman then suddenly doing this very weird British accent, and all of this stuff. And then as when she is Penelope Rogers slash the bride, she kind of goes in and out of this American slash British kind of characterization. I think it's fascinating. I think
Mhm.
it's interesting. And I think that it's doing something that I haven't seen before, and it is imaginative and it is creative. And I think even if you're not 100% sold on it, let's just, let's just praise the fact and celebrate the fact that we have this really creative engagement with this text as opposed to just another
Well,
remake or like another superhero film.
especially when you think about like Kenneth, I always think about Kenneth Branagh calling it Mary Shelley's Frankenstein,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and kind of using Shelley's name as authenticity for his version, and
Yeah.
that kind of idea of like taking a woman's creation and taking a woman's artistry and agency and stripping it all away, but then still using her name to give yourself authority and to give yourself authenticity. And I do think, like, particularly with Frankenstein, and I think it's because Shelley was the daughter of Godwin and Wollstonecraft was,
Mm.
the kind of illegitimate wife of Shelley because of everything with his first wife, but also because she was so young and because there was the nature of the way that the romantics edited each other's work and impacted each other's work. Like there's so much around her authorship that we maybe don't get with her
Mm.
contemporaries like Austen, that I do think it's kind of important to not take Shelley out of a
Yeah.
reimagining that's placing it in something like the 30s, even though it's seemingly so disconnected. Like obviously I'll have to watch it myself to kind of
Yeah.
get that, but it doesn't give me any immediate like, oh no, I don't like that. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
put me off because straight away I'm like, well, I can kind of see why that would work and why that's important, and
I mean,
also why I wouldn't automatically hate it.
I thought that it was a really interesting comment on how adaptations are a form of possession, and essentially, ultimately, in,
Yeah.
in this in this film, the person who is possessing all of these characters is Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it is
Yes.
she's using Jessie Buckley, but it's Maggie Gyllenhaal that's written all of these words, and it's her vision. Like this is her direction. It's her film. So I think, although yes, you have like Mary Shelley, the character at the center, I think it is very much a character, and I think that it's very in the very stylized, exaggerated, almost hammy way that Jessie Buckley plays that. Well, she plays all the characters, but especially when she's
Mhm.
doing a kind of Mary Shelley, either Mary Shelley or Ida doing whatever she does in that British kind of way. I was like, this is not what Mary Shelley would have sounded like, but that's not the point. Because and I did forget to mention, it's set in 1930 Chicago. It's like, obviously, like, why on earth would this be set in 1930 Chicago? Why would Mary Shelley, like the romantic author, why would she set something here? Because that's not what this is. This is Maggie Gyllenhaal's story. And I think that's why you do get bits of white feminism and white liberal feminism in there. And I think on the one hand, they are a little bit cringe and surface level, but I also think, let's look at our current society. We have a crisis of
Mm,
masculinity, just as we were talking in the
yeah.
previous film. I think there are some elements of society that still need to be hit over the head with feminist like points, and there is one bit where
Yeah.
she's shouting, me too, me too. And it's like, not about that, but it does make you think about the Me Too movement. And I think,
Yeah.
again, that's because this is Maggie Gyllenhaal's text. Um, That's how
Yeah.
I would interpret
Well,
it.
it's kind of like, some of the criticisms of the Barbie movie were like, this is
Mm.
very like feminism 101, it's performative intersectionality. And yeah, it is. Like it is performative intersectionality and it is feminism 101. I mean, my argument is it's a Barbie movie. Like Barbie
Yeah.
is feminism 101. Like that is most like that's kind of the whole point. But also that like we can't have certain conversations until we've established a baseline. And it is frustrating because we shouldn't need to establish that baseline, but the reality is that we thought we established a baseline in the 70s and the 80s proof that we didn't, and the 90s proof that we didn't.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of feminism in the 21st century has been about going, hey, I need to explain to you why the fact that Erica Kirk can get on this stage proves we need feminism and feminism exists is the like antithesis of what she's saying. It kind of to me says we do need narratives
Yeah.
like this because
Yeah.
we need feminism 101 because
Yeah.
yes, people that are being in like people that are affected by this understand this, but you do have white women doing shit like that, and that means you do need a narrative that is like, this is bullshit, let's rein it back, let's go back to the beginning, and then we can go on for a more complex
Yeah.
conversation.
And to get into some of the plot points, there will be some spoilers here, and I'll signpost a really big spoiler. But essentially, what happens is Ida is a woman who is kind of working and in the circle of this big mobster, and you later learn that the police officer, Jake Wills, it had been using her as an informant, and so she had been, it's a bad, like, Chicago gang, and she then ends up dead, and her body, is then taken and reanimated, and then she starts up this kind of friendship relationship with Frank, and they go on a kind of Bonnie and Clyde-esque type journey, which does
Mm-hmm.
involve some murder, and there is a club scene, which has a lot of strobing, so I had to not not watch a lot of that. And then as they're coming out of the club scene, they get kind of verbally assaulted by these guys, who then start getting violent, but these people are reanimated corpses, and so they respond with violence, and that I think you would probably need to look away there. That scene is probably the most violent in the film, um where they then become wanted murderers, and they go around. At one point they kidnap Ronnie Reed, because why not?
Why not? Who's your
And
favorite actor?
during one of the standoffs where they have a gun, the detective Jake Wiles recognizes Ida. She's then the bride, Penelope, and he keeps calling her Ida, and she's like, "Who am I?" And that's what leads to her kind of this revelation of who she is. But you find out that not only had this police detective been using her as an informant, but he had also been sleeping with her, and he hadn't given her the due care that she deserved as an informant or as someone that he was sleeping with. And he had almost like kind of just forgotten her. So I didn't know what happened to her, because the gang had just buried her body. And I think that there is in this film a really, sorry, that was the spoiler that I should have said. but it is all about, this is an entire film that is about women's bodies and who possesses women's bodies and what happens to them. And I think that it's doing something really interesting. And I think, yeah, maybe the stylization of it, the hamminess of it, the clunkiness of it, you might not like. But I think that there is something interesting there. And again, we should celebrate innovation and creativity, which this film has bucket loads of.
Yeah, and isn't it Maggie Gyllenhaal's directorial debut, or at least a
No,
feature-length debut?
no, she's actually made. I forget what she made, another film, which I think
Oh,
also
okay.
starred Jessie Buckley. But that's not. That's more of a kind of thriller. I
Oh,
think that
okay.
might have been an adaptation. But I think this is her first kind of like gothic horror, you know, thing that she really wanted to get made.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, so The Bride, bit polarizing, but worth a watch. Just be aware of some of the slightly more violent scenes.
Yes, absolutely. I think it is very, very violent. I think it is very interesting. And even
Hmm.
if you don't like it, I think you will have lots of things to ponder over.
Thoughts?
Yes, lots of thoughts. And yeah, as we move into our retrospectives, I have to apologize. My cat is in the room. But I think it's
He
because he
demands
knew
attention.
he demands attention. If you haven't seen my cat before, then go check out my website. I have an entire page on there dedicated to pictures of Buster Keaton. So if cats are your thing, then that's something that you should do.
Hmm. Hmm.
But not until you've heard my next film that I'm going to recommend. And this is so obviously we'll come back to some recent releases later when we look forward to what we're doing. But this is the section that I like to call my retrospective
Hmm.
section, where I highlight a film, an older film or maybe an underlooked film that I think is really good and that is worth checking out. And the one that I want to spotlight today is Kuroneko, which
Black
also,
Cat?
yeah, translates as Black Cat. So I think Buster was like, "You're talking about me, right?" I know. It's like he knew. So have you heard of this film before, Lauren? Before
No,
I
I
kind of
just was like, I'm pretty sure that
yeah.
Kuroneko translates to black cat. Although maybe
It,
I have. Maybe you'll tell me about it. I assume it's
yeah.
Japanese.
So yeah, it is Japanese. This film is written and directed by Kanito Shindo, who also wrote and directed the earlier 1964 Japanese historical horror Onibaba, which you might
Oh,
have heard of.
that film I do know.
Yes, yeah. Which I was like, do I recommend Onibaba? But then I was like, no, I'm going to recommend Kuroneko.
Mhm.
So this came out in 1968. Um, and so in quite so Shindo did quite a lot of horror films. Kind of a Japanese like stalwart in terms of like horror. And a lot of the kind of strong themes in all of his works are social criticism of poverty and women and sexuality. He described himself as a socialist, and I think that you definitely get a sense of that in a lot of his
Mhm.
work. The same is true for Onibaba, but also of Kuroneko. So this is a Japanese Jidaigeki horror film, which is essentially a period horror film. So
Yeah.
even though it's set in the 60s, it's set like, well, it's made in the 60s, it's set in the kind of earlier samurai era, and it's adapting a Japanese folktale. The full title of this film is Yabu no Naka no Kuroneko, or in English, Black Cat in a Bamboo Grove. So the folktale, I think, is especially often has the title of Bamboo Grove, or that's really important.
Yeah.
But the film is often known just as Kuroneko or Black Cat. Now, there is a big focus on gender and women and sexuality. And so there does need to be a content warning for this film. It has a lot of sexual and gender violence. So just to kind of, if you
Mhm.
are looking to watch this film, just bear that in mind. So the narrative of the film is set in feudal Japan during a civil war. And the film focuses on the vengeful spirits of a woman and her daughter-in-law. So the woman's son and the
Oh, so
woman's
that's a lot
husband.
like Onibaba.
Yeah, yeah. The woman's son and the her husband has gone away. He's a samurai. He's fighting in this war. They are at home. They live in this bamboo grove, and they are then raped and brutally murdered by a band of samurai. So other samurai who kind of come in and they burn down their house, and a black cat
Mhm.
appears at their dead bodies. So there's this horrific crime that happens, um, and then the house is burnt down in this bamboo grove, and then there is a black cat that kind of is there
Mhm.
for around and stuff. Later, the women appear as ghosts in a bamboo grove, and they appear as fine and wealthy ladies. As samurai pass through, they lure the samurai back to their house. they give them a lot of like hospitality, tea, food, all these kinds of things, and
Mhm.
then they seduce the men, the samurai. And then once they've done that, they then transform into these kinds of cat-like ghosts that kill and murder the samurai, and they it gets quite violent and very cat-like. But I have to say, you know, it is maybe more on the violent side of the films that I recommend, but it is very worth a watch. It's very good, very enjoyable. And yeah, if you like black cats and if you like period horror, but maybe you want a different kind of
Yeah.
period horror, then yeah, I
Yeah.
would 100% recommend this. So that's my retrospective recommendation. Lauren, do you also have a pick that you would like to recommend?
Yes. So I recently went to see, and unfortunately, it was quite a limited release. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this in the cinema. But I would think that you'll probably be able to get it either like on streaming soon, or I imagine it'll probably be on something like Crunchyroll. So I went to see the latest anime movie by Mamoru Hosoda, who, if you are familiar, made Belle, Mirai, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and unironically, one of my favorite movies of all time, the Digimon movie, which he then was like, I kind of want to remake this in my own IP, and made Summer Wars, which, if you've not seen, is a great movie. But he is probably one of like, I would say like one of the best anime directors like and
Mm.
creators of our like current, generation.
I I
Um,
also love the Digimon movie. And I
it's such a
remember
good movie.
when I finished my GCSEs, I watched all of the Digimon movies,
Yeah.
and all the series as well. Yeah, yeah, big fan, big fan.
We we stand Digimon in this secret society. Genuinely, it's such a good film. Like
Yeah.
it's a very deep, quite complex film about identity and kind of like a bit of a precursor to a lot of the AI stuff.
Oh yeah,
It's a really
100%.
great film. Yeah. So Summer Wars also a great film. Wolf Children, fantastic.
The Girl Who Leapt Through
His Go
Time,
Through
excellent film.
I was
Like,
just gonna say, Girl Through Life Through Time is fantastic. I loved Belle. So his most recent feature film, Belle, is you can very much tell it's a Hasada film. It has similar themes to like Summer Wars. It's about a young woman who is kind of in like this online. It's kind of imagining that the metaverse was actually real and not shit. And in the metaverse, she's Belle, a pop star essentially. And in the real world, she's very shy, and it's just this really beautiful film. Scarlet, his most recent film, which is what I went to see, is a reimagining of Hamlet. So
oh, okay.
instead of Hamlet being the Prince of Denmark, it is Scarlet, the Princess of Denmark. And Scarlet's evil uncle, Claudius, is basically like ruining Denmark. People are starving. There's some kind of plot going on, and Scarlet attempts to poison her uncle and fails and is herself killed. We then pick up with Scarlet in this afterlife, and we follow Scarlet as she attempts to get vengeance on her uncle, Claudius, and his generals for murdering her father and taking her own life. It has all of the kind of elements of, I'm not going to spoil it necessarily, it has the elements of Hamlet in that you have a deposed prince who is seeking vengeance, who thinks that the thing that their deceased parent wants from them is vengeance. We have this kind of, instead of a ghost, it's a kind of repeated memory. She ends up in this afterlife, and in the afterlife, there's this idea that there's some kind of otherworld kingdom, like another level, and Claudius has been amassing power of all these roving gangs in the afterlife to be able to ascend to the next level, and he's waiting for Gertrude. Scarlet essentially goes through this like journey of self-discovery. She meets a modern day Japanese paramedic who thinks he's not dead, doesn't think he's meant to be there, but he has his paramedic kit with him. And it's not, I didn't enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed his other films, but that's because I think it's a lot more experimental. It's a lot more, he's kind of moving into Miyazaki territory. It is a very anti-war film. And the whole narrative is like, what if as a human race we weren't so obsessed with an eye for an eye? Which is kind of what Hamlet is all about. Like, that's not a
Yeah.
deviation from the text. But it is a absolutely visually it's probably his most ambitious film. Loads of different animation styles. The storytelling is really fantastic. Even though I didn't love it in the way that I've loved other films of his, I would definitely watch it again. And it left me thinking about it for a long time. And I think in the same way that Hamlet has a lot of Gothic elements and is often thought of as the kind of most Gothic of Shakespeare's plays, even though like Titus is a lot more violent and things like that. I think if you are someone who enjoys that kind of storytelling, you'll really, really like it. And particularly if you took my recommendation and you watched the Mononoke movies, not Princess Mononoke, Mononoke. I think if you watched Mononoke and you liked that, you'll definitely like this. So Scarlet 2025 is my recommendation for this month.
Excellent. And we don't tell each other what we're going to be talking about. And I had no idea that you were also going to recommend a Japanese film, but it's worked out really well.
No, it's
So
just worked out really well.
if you're looking for some Japanese Gothic horror stuff, you have my recommendation, which is a violent period horror with ghosts, or you've got Lauren's more family-friendly ghost Hamlet adaptation anime.
I would say in the same way that I wouldn't like take a 12-year-old necessarily to see Hamlet. Like I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like there is some violence in Scarlet. Some of the fight scenes are quite violent. But in the way of like Miyazaki, like if you are okay with the violence in something like Princess Mononoke, you'll be absolutely okay with this.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I need to check that out. Yeah, because I
think you should definitely watch it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're almost at the end of this episode. We'll just finish it with what we'll be looking forward to next time. As Lauren said at the start, there's lots of horror films coming out.
Yeah.
So some that I am looking forward to, The Good Boy, or Good Boy, I think it is.
Yes.
Which maybe we'll talk about in our next one. And also Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which I'm very, very excited about. And also
I've
Undertone.
been seeing the press for that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, anything with Sarah Michelle Gellar in, I'm like,
yeah, right.
Yes. But yeah, definitely we'll talk about Ready or Not 2, Here I Come in the next episode. So stay tuned for that one. If you, in the meantime, have any recommendations that you want to share, like we said, just message us on any platform you want, and we'll feature them in the next episode. And until then, that's it from myself and Lauren. And in the meantime, stay safe and stay spooky.
Stay safe and stay spooky, everybody.